The world around us is smart. We think your education should be smart too. With the FlexPath learning format from Capella University, you can set your own deadlines and leverage your experience to move forward at your pace. Visit capella.edu to learn more. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
From British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including Rockin' Out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire, and check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight. Susan Masino is here, author extraordinaire, rock and roller extraordinaire. We're going to get into rock and roll and ghosts. What better combination is there than that? See, I'm all excited tonight for Susan to be here. Just pumped. I feel like I got to just, yes. I'm just that pumped up. I love her. I do. And following that, in hour 3, we're going to have another great story from our resident swamp dweller, and another spooky story there. As well, the fedora-wearing John Hudson will join us with the UFO report. Shirky Poo's got the news. Yeah, a busy night. Susan Masino has been a rock journalist for over 30 years. She has a number of books out, created and hosted the 94.1 JJO local stage radio show from 97 to 2004. She's produced 8 local music compilation CDs. Susan has also appeared in Van Halen's DVD, The Early Years, and Let There Be Rock, the movie. Her book, The Story of AC/DC, Let There Be Rock, is published in 11 languages. Most of her life has been interested in the paranormal and music. How do you not love this lady? She gets to play with ghosts on one hand and AC/DC on the other. Yeah, good stories. She's a great storyteller, and I'm glad she's here. Susan Masino, one of my favorites ever on this show. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Dave. I'm very well. I'm honored to be here. I love talking to you. I love your show. Hello to the audience, and thank you so much for having me on.
You know what? It's never boring when you're here. It never is, because you have so many stories about going on the road and meeting all sorts of musicians. Now, I know AC/DC is the closest to your heart, and you're very well known within the band as well. You're not one of these people who just reports on the band but never knows them. They're friends of yours. You hang out with them. You know, you party with them. And yet you got this ghost side to you that, for our new listeners who are tuning in saying, who's this awesome Susan Masino lady? You know, this is what it's all about. This is why you're the perfect SOR guest.
Oh, I love rock and roll and the paranormal. And a lot of times they cross paths. They really do.
It very much so. Let's learn for our audience sake here, Susan, who may not have heard you on previous shows here. But let's talk about the paranormal side right off the bat. You are intuitive. You are somebody who has dealt with the paranormal your entire life. Do you remember going back as a child or as a teenager and having weird experiences happen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, actually, my grandmother, I should say, started all of this when I was really little. She, we used to say our prayers, we'd sleep on a day bed in her bedroom, and she would tell us stories before we went to sleep. And one night she told us the story about when her mother passed away, that her mother had appeared to her in her bedroom one night to say goodbye. Now, this was extremely terrifying and extremely fascinating for me, because right then and there I thought, well, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And can she come back? I mean, will she reappear again? And so, needless to say, every night that I slept at my grandmother's house, I fell asleep staring at that doorway, waiting for something to materialize. But that started me on a path of just, when I was in middle school, the only person really that wrote about it was Hans Holzer. He was, the original ghost hunter. And so I just read as much as I could. And as I got older, I am a psychic empath. I have prophetic dreams. I've seen shadow people. I've seen UFOs. I've seen a full body apparition. And I was poisoned by something, I'll say a spirit, at Bobby Mackey's in Wilder, Kentucky.
Wow. That's not very nice for it to do that. Not very nice at all.
No, it was awful. And what's crazy about it is a lot of people that investigate Bobby Mackey's get sick.
I have heard that.
Yes.
So
there's something there that can do that.
Considering your life revolving around two different careers, the paranormal side and the music side, which one do you prefer?
Oh, wow, that's a tough one. I love both of them so much. I can't think of doing one without the other, but I guess music first, because I grew up in the music business. My parents owned a ballroom when I was born. And they always had like bars and restaurants where they had the jukebox and live music. So I pretty much grew up in it. So, and that, of course, that keeps everybody. I mean, what would we do without music?
Very true. Very, very true. When you look at everything that you have kind of gone through with music and the paranormal, a lot of people don't really understand how the two really overlap each other. A lot of musicians are experiencers. They are very profound. They are very intuitive. They may not be psychic, but intuitive, I think, is more the correct word there. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But out of all the musicians that you have dealt with over the years, and from Van Halen to AC/DC and every Kiss and Guns N' Roses band member in between, have you met a number of musicians over the years that have come up to you on the side and said, hey, I've experienced some things?
Actually, not so much. I mean, I guess I never really asked them about it. Although, I know that, Angus and I have talked about it, though, I have to say. We talk about Bon and his presence. Because, when Angus is on stage, and now he's said also that he feels Malcolm with him, too. But the band, Brian Johnson also mentioned in many interviews during the recording of Back in Black that he had a visitation from Bon, even though he doesn't really elaborate on it. But I can imagine that, Bon was there. But there's a few weird things, like when they were recording Razor's Edge.
Love that album.
That was such a great album, and they came back, 7-8 years later and just bigger than ever. And I heard that they came back one day and there were backing vocals on a song that had not been recorded. I mean, the backing vocals had not been recorded, but they were there in the studio, and it sounded like Bon.
Really?
So, that's one of the coolest things I can think of. But
I would love to hear that. So basically, what you're saying is, here they're recording the backing vocals, and when they played it back, Bon Scott at this time, who's been dead for 30 years, has his, or 20 years, pardon me, at that point, literally has his voice on track. What song?
Oh, I'd have to look that up. I don't know if they revealed the exact song, so that's something I would have to dig into.
That just gave me huge goosebumps.
It's so cool because Bon, he's so much there, and what I love about what the band does is, how many people have been to a live AC/DC concert? Half the songs, half of the lyrics were written by Bon. So he's very much part of their show to this day. And then it always brings a bit of a tear when they do Highway to Hell as one of their encore songs, and they have a picture of Bon up behind them on the stage. So, and a lot of bands don't do that. After someone has left the picture, passed away, they don't hold that, that image for decades like they do with Bon. And every time we talk, every time Angus and I talk, no matter how many years it's been, we always talk about Bon. Always. Mm-hmm. So he's always around.
When you have that kind of a bond with someone, it doesn't go away. Whether they're there or not, it doesn't go away. And oh gosh, I would love to hear that song because I loved The Razor's Edge. I'm not going to lie. You know what I found fun? And this is where we're going to kind of just jump into it and talk music at times tonight, because I am such a music aficionado. Like, I'm not a big, have you heard this band, or I watched that band when they, before they made it big. I'm not that guy, but there's just sometimes I just get really, really into it. And, one of the things I always found funny about the Razor's Edge album was the self-titled song, The Razor's Edge. That was my favorite song on that album, and it never, ever got played until like 25 years later, when it becomes the theme for Iron Man.
Yeah.
And
isn't that crazy?
It never got played on radio. I never heard it on Sirius XM. It was nowhere except on my collection, and all of a sudden Iron Man comes out, and I'm like, listening to the commercial, I'm like, Razor's Edge. Yeah. Yes. Like, about time. Yeah. About time that song got its due.
That whole album is amazing.
But they never even played it in concert.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
They never did. And until it made it big. So that's just one of those little things that I noticed. But, as you go on here and you've had these spiritual connections with people and musicians and everything like that, explain... let me rephrase that. I know you're a very humble person. I know that you have taken this as one giant gift from the powers above that have graced you with a life that you wanted. Not a lot of us get that opportunity, Susan. So for somebody who, and I'm not saying there hasn't been trials and tribulations along the way, but for someone who has basically lived the life that they have wanted to live, what's that like for so many of us who haven't?
It's kind of strange in a way, because people think that, my life has always been very easy and I just do fun things, which I have done a lot of fun things, but I definitely didn't start out that way. And when I started writing for a local paper, I was 21 years old, and I lucked into working for a paper that happened to be in the time period that all these bands, Cheap Trick, AC/DC, Van Halen, Journey, all these bands were exploding right in front of us. So that was, that really set the stage for, the rest of what I would do in my life. But it's very surreal for me. I mean, I sometimes I'll find stuff on the internet about myself, and I'll see it and go, oh, wow, that's, geez, that's pretty cool. But I don't walk around like that every day, and feel like, hey, guess what? I'm pretty low key about that, because I was lucky. I was very lucky and in the right place at the right time. And luckily, back when I was a kid, I kept journals and calendars and date books and, all the articles that I wrote, that sort of thing. So I kept good records. And thank God, I say now at this age why I get interviewed is because I'm old, I'm older, so I was there, and I'm still alive. Last time I checked, and I can still remember. So So it's come in handy. But I have, gotten to know Les Paul. Got to hang out with Van Halen before they were famous. Hung out with AC/DC when they were broke. Which is really funny to when you hear some of the songs that Bon used to write about. I got the Cadillac, but I can't afford the gasoline. That they were really struggling when I first met them. So to watch, it's been amazing for me to watch. Like, I knew these bands were going to be big, and I knew they were going to be iconic, but I really can't say that I could have said at the time, oh my gosh, 45 years from now, they're still going to be filling stadiums. That is just pure luck right there for me.
As somebody who has been around the music scene as much as you have, we have, there are very few bands left, Susan, that are actually doing stadium tours anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, especially at the height of rock and roll, everything was in a football stadium. Whether it was Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, AC/DC, Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, whoever. We have, and you fast forward to today, you can almost count on two hands, and maybe not very much beyond that, anybody who can do a real stadium type of tour and put 65, 70, 80,000 people inside there. I mean, what has happened to music, in your opinion, where we've seen the digression of these crowds?
Well, this is going to really date me, but when I was a kid, to see your band, your favorite band on stage, because when I was in high school, the Coliseum in Madison, Wisconsin, we had bands pretty much every week. I saw, Black Sabbath, Cream, Deep Purple, Pink Floyd, all these incredible bands. And that was, it was a big deal because you could see them. They were there. They were right in front of you. And then after MTV started, and all of a sudden, now you're seeing them in videos. And I always make a joke, now you see, rock stars on deodorant commercials. I mean, it's gotten to be such a mainstream thing. And a lot of the younger, kids, they we used to go out and buy the album, right? Or the 8-track tape. But everything's at your fingertips now. Everything's on the computer. And I think it is depersonalized it a lot. And kind of watered it down to, I think, hardcore fans, of course, are going to go out and see the band live. But it's changed so much. I mean, really, a lot. I mean, and now there's so many bands out there. I hate to say it, but I can't keep up with all the bands anymore. I used to know everybody.
And that isn't a shot at today's music. There's a lot of good music. And music is always rotating. So, like, for the last 15, 18 years, it's really shifted over to hip-hop and EDM music, and I actually quite enjoy that. I very much enjoy that. I mean, I can say to you 10 years ago, I would never go see somebody like Snoop Dogg or Eminem in concert, or even Kanye West or somebody like that. Today, I'm interested in seeing them. I'm not I'm not as familiar with their music, but I'm interested in seeing them to say, hey, I saw those guys, or I saw that guy live. Whereas back in the day, I think you make complete sense regarding that, because there was no real internet at the time. The only chance you got was to go and get the tickets. But I think a lot of people don't realize, and please correct me if I'm wrong, as we got about 3 minutes to go here before we got to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Back then, the way the music contracts were set up, they got paid a lot of money on albums. If you had a good contract, you got paid a lot of money on the albums. Today, when you're downloading a song for 99 cents, it takes a lot of and Apple or Google Play take, I think, 80 cents of that before the band sees any. It's a crapshoot where now you have to make your money on tour. So instead of charging that $50 or $60 a ticket, now you're charging $100, $125. Front row center now is like $3,000 or more. I mean, you can't blame them though.
I love the fact that, and I can't say that they'll do this when they finally go out on tour again, but AC/DC has always kept their ticket prices around $100 a piece because they remember what it was like not to be able to scrape up $100. And that they could charge anything and probably still sell out. But they have been one band that is, that I'm very proud of to say that they remember what it was like not to have that kind of money. So I love that about them.
Brings you to that old quote of Kurt Cobain while he was still with us, where he had heard that a Madonna ticket was like $80, and Nirvana was the biggest band in the world at that time, charging $25 a ticket. And he couldn't believe that any band or any musician would charge $80 for a ticket to see them.
Yeah, it's crazy. I haven't seen Paul McCartney in years because I'm not paying $300 for a ticket. I've seen him a few times and he's wonderful in concert, but $300 for a ticket or even more, that I just can't. I can't see doing that.
No, I could for Guns N' Roses. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I'm that much.
The world around us is smart. We think your education should be smart too. With the FlexPath learning format from Capella University, you can set your own deadlines and leverage your experience to move forward at your pace. Visit capella.edu to learn more. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
The General Insurance presents Ordering a Sandwich with Shaq and Hall of Fame announcer Michael Buffer.
I'm going to have roast beef. What do you want, Michael?
Let's get ready for pastrami on rye.
Turns out, Michael Buffer talks like that all the time. And it turns out, The General is a quality insurance company that's been saving people money for nearly 60 years.
Spicy Dijon mustard.
For a great low rate and nearly 60 years of quality coverage, make the right call and go with The General.
The General Auto Insurance Services, Inc., an insurance agency, Nashville, Tennessee. Some restrictions apply.
An addict. $300, what the hell? Let's just do it. $500, sure. $1,000. Oh, yeah, I'm going. But there are people out there like my business partner in SOR. He has seen Iron Maiden 157 times. 157 times. And when they go on tour, he announces to all his friends he's going on tour.
Yes.
And it's so funny because the bar he owns in Vancouver called the Moose, one of our sponsors, the last time Iron Maiden was in Vancouver was 2 nights after the show, and he walks into the bar, and I forget the gentleman's name, and I apologize, but here's the lead guitarist for Iron Maiden sitting at the bar. And,
oh, no.
And so my business partner walks up to him and says, "What the hell are you doing here?" And the guy literally said to him, he goes, "Everybody on Iron Maiden knows about your bar." He goes, "I just haven't made it here yet." He goes, "So I had to check it out for myself." Right?
Aww.
And that's just the way it is. But Lemmy Kilmister used to go into his bar all the time when Motorhead was touring in Vancouver. And the one thing I love about his bar, you never know who's going to be in there on a nightly basis. It's a beautiful thing. Susan, I know I've done a lot of talking here the last couple minutes, but I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We are going to get into more paranormal stories with you when we return from the break. Susan Masino is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. You can find all of her books online at Amazon. And if you love rock and roll, love AC/DC, her books are the one that you want. Plain and simple. She's one of my favorite guests. So glad that she's here tonight. Susan Masino, paranormal and rock and roll, all night long on Spaced Out Radio. And we're clear. That was fun.
Yeah, it was.
Don't forget our YouTube audience can hear us.
Yeah, I was going to say, who's listening?
Is there anybody out there? Why not?
Spooky.
Totally. You know what's weird about that? That is there anybody out there? When I was having a lot of ET contact, I would know they were coming because a day, anywhere from a few days to a day before, I would hear in my head, "Is there anybody out there?"
Oh, that's so cool. I love stuff like that.
Yeah, that was kind of cool when that would happen.
Yeah. No, I've got plenty of UFO stuff too. I definitely I've had experiences.
I still think that you need to write a book about rock and roll paranormal stories. I really, really do believe you need to do that. And I am putting all my energy into convincing you that that's the book you need to write.
Well, actually, I'm working on my life stories right now, and I'm writing it in short story form because, as you said, I've got a million stories, and I'm probably going to include those because that's part of the journey completely. It's been a crazy ride.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there are so many stories out there about bands. There's a guy named Steve. Oh, he's been a guest on this show. What is his last name? Canadian guy. He was in a small band in Eastern Canada out of Toronto back in the 70s and 80s. And his band, they were driving in a van to their next gig, and they actually got abducted.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got.
And they all remembered it?
Yeah, he's got a book on it. Yeah.
That's awesome. I just saw a comment in here saying that while he was in college, that AC/DC stopped to get gas. The guy that you met was probably Barry Taylor, who was a roadie when I first met the band, and he ended up he's still a friend of mine. So he actually was but he can't hear me, can he?
Yes.
The guy that.
Yep.
Oh, okay, good. I'm talking to JG here. That was probably Barry Taylor. That's what he looked like, and he was on the road all the time with them.
Wow, that's kind of cool. That is actually a very, very cool.
Yeah, they put on so many miles. He told me the first 2 times or 3 times that they came to the U.S. altogether, that they figured they put on something like 40,000 miles driving just in the U.S.
And now that most bands don't even take the whatchamacallit anymore, a bus. I remember, living in Abbotsford, British Columbia, where I grew up. It was like 10 miles from the border. And every summer, you would see, the big tour buses come on by on the highway. Whether they were rock and roll, whether they were country. This is when bands used to put their logos and names all over their motorhomes. Now it's because of security. Very few of them actually do that anymore. But it was cool living there because you never knew who all of a sudden you were going to, pass on the highway or whatever. And all of a sudden, if it was like Def Leppard or somebody like that, you would be like, out your window, it was just great.
Yeah.
Kids today will never get that. Kids today, they'll never get that.
Well, when I first met AC/DC, they were literally riding around in a station wagon with 3 roadies that had like I want to say a 26-foot rider truck.
Yeah.
So, they were, and staying in Motel 6s.
Yeah.
So things changed a lot.
I want to say a big thank you to Smithy and Crazy Smith for the awesome super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. Thank you to all the veterans who are tuning us in. Remember, this weekend, Friday, there will be no show, as Lynn Wallington and myself will be in San Francisco for UFOCon 2022, where we will be speaking. So if you're in the Bay Area or surrounding, you want to come hang out with us in San Fran, go to UFOCon2022.com and get tickets. And we're going to get going here right now. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight. Paranormal and rock and roll. We're going to get ghostly tonight with author Susan Masino. You can find all of her books on Amazon, some bookstores as well, because she is just that awesome. And you know what? When you want to hear the combination between the two, Susan's the one to chat with. Susan, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. Thank you for listening, everybody in the chat room.
All right, I want to get right to it here regarding our experiences that you have had that you can share with our audience. And not only have you dealt with paranormal, you've dealt with some UFO stuff as well. What have you seen?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I think that back in the 1980s that I had some abduction experiences that were... Oh, God, this I don't usually talk about this, and I haven't written about it, but I had a lot of crazy dreams while this was going on. And I dreamed one night I was literally on a ship that was, it was very cedar colored on the inside, like a glow to it, if you will. And I was walking around, you know, like it was okay to be there. And there were some beings that were taller than me, but they were with cloaks. I couldn't really see their faces, but they didn't seem to mind that I was snooping around, basically. And this was in a dream state. But this was during a lot of what I felt was abduction experiences at the time. And so I was on the ship in the dream, and I'm walking down this hallway. I guess it's hard to describe, you know, if a UFO has a hallway or not. But I opened the door. There was a door that I opened. And my daughter, now I don't know how I knew this information, but it just was there, you know. Not somebody, no one came up and said something like, oh, this is what's going on. I just opened the door, and my daughter was laying on a table, and they were projecting her memories on a screen behind her and collecting them. So I felt like, oh my goodness, you know, I had interrupted. So I respectfully closed the door, and I walked a little further, and there was another door. I opened that door, and my dad was laying on a table, and they were doing the same thing to him. They were projecting his memories onto a screen behind him or the wall behind him and collecting them. So I shut that door, you know, it respectfully. I didn't mean to interrupt. That was kind of the feeling that I had. So then I walked into more of what a UFO would look like on the inside, you know, a round room. And you know how, like, in the 70s, you know, they always had, like, the sunken living room type thing where you walk down a few steps, you know, and there's seating and all that. Well, I stepped down a couple stairs and was walking, and this like wooden ball hit me in the ankle really hard, like a croquet ball kind of thing. And I remember kicking it in the dream. I kicked it away, thinking, well, that hurt. And then I noticed I got down on my hands and knees, and underneath the seating area, I guess, were all these people that looked like us, only they were like the size of Barbie dolls. And there was a lot of them. And I realized that I had walked into the middle of a game. So what I did was I grabbed the ball, I put it back into the middle of the field, if you will, and apologized, and then went and sat in the window and looked out the window. And that was the end of the dream. So that was one of them.
Well, fun times for them, allowing you not to play. Gee whiz.
Yeah.
Who does that?
I was too big. I was too big.
Who does that? That's not very fair. It's not very fair at all.
It was crazy. Yeah. So they were playing a game, and recently I've had a lot of dreams like that. But there's a dream that I had about maybe 6 weeks ago that really freaked me out because it was really freaky. A lot of my dreams are more visions than dreams.
Yes.
So they're very very visual. I can see, it's kind of like I'm watching myself, if you will. So I'm standing on this country road. There's tree line to the left and the right of me, and it's a sunny day outside. And all of a sudden, these ships are landing, and they are massive UFOs. They all look the same, and they were landing next to each other. And people were running for their lives, freaking out, screaming. And I'm in awe. I'm just watching this. And they were so big that they blocked out the sky. So it was almost dark outside once they landed. And then you gotta hand it to my dreams. They're crazy because I'm standing there and I'm telling everybody that's running past me, I'm saying, just go home. Just go home. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And I'm thinking, no, it's not going to be fine. But I'm trying to calm people down. And the UFOs then let out these a creature that looked like a dinosaur guard dog, kind of as big as a skyscraper and looking like metal, made of metal. And they came out of each ship and sat in front of the ship. Like a guard dog, I guess. It would be a guard dinosaur, creature. And so I went home in the dream, and I literally had a peaceful, acceptance that we were all going to die, obviously, because they had landed. And for some reason, I knew that they had landed all the way around the planet. Like they encircled the entire planet. They all landed in the same moment. And people were completely freaking out, and I'm thinking, well, this is it. What are we going to do about that? And about 2-3 days go by, and then they vanished. They never interacted with us, but the ships and the creatures vanished just as quickly as they appeared.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Were you always big into ETs?
Oh, yeah. I've always believed in that. How can we not believe that, how can we believe that we're the only intelligent beings in the universe or universes? That's impossible. And I think they built the pyramids, so,
Well, you know what? That's one way to put it. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. We have no idea whether they did or not, but history does have a remarkable way of covering up itself. Now, one of the things I want to ask you is the fact that you get very vivid dreams. Are you able to tell the difference between what is a dream and what is an experience?
Pretty much, yes, because you know how dreams are. I mean, they're some of it's clear, some of it's kind of blurry or mixed together kind of thing. And then I'll have dreams where it's like a movie, just like when I saw the UFOs land, that was like being, in a movie. It was so realistic. And actually, I experienced, which I guess, I've heard thousands of people experience this. 2 nights before 9/11, I was on the radio on Sunday night. So it was a Sunday night. I got off at midnight, came home, went to bed probably at 3 or 4 in the morning. And I had this vivid dream. And I used to live in New York, so I'm familiar with New York City. And I had this vivid dream that I was in Lower Manhattan. It was a bright, sunny morning, blue sky, and this plane went right over the top of my head. And people were running, just screaming and running, and I saw the plane go over me, and I looked up and I thought, why are they flying so low? And then I thought to myself, maybe it's not a plane, it's a UFO, and that's why people are running. And this is kind of creepy. There were 2 blue circles on the back of this airplane as it went over the top of my head. And I looked into it later that American Airlines, that used to be their logo,
right,
was 2 blue circles. So I saw 9/11 less than 48 hours before it happened.
Wow. That's just intense. Intense.
Mm-hmm.
For you...
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people did.
Yeah, I've heard that too. One of the creepy stories about 9/11, and I'm still not sure whether or not, because it's still, let's face it, it's still extremely fresh 25 years later in all of our minds. And that's the reality of it. But there was a documentary put out, oh goodness, I'm going to say 10 years ago now, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, about children who have been reincarnated from the 9/11 victims.
Yes.
And some of the stories, it's about, I only saw like an 18-minute version of this. It's on YouTube. You can check it out on YouTube. But that absolutely freaked me out. When the parents are telling stories about how their young child, 2-3 years old, is screaming at them because they feel the building collapsing all around them. And a couple of the children even gave names of who they were, or the floor that they were on, or the airplane that they were on. That is just, it's heartbreaking. It is. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about that. So, it shows you that, we come back around, even though, I'm tired of it. It's like I'm waiting to be beamed up and I'm afraid they're going to land and go, no, you agreed to be here. Sorry, you can't get on.
I want to ask you, are you a big reincarnation person?
Oh, God, yes. Big time.
Do you remember your previous lives? Like, what were you last life? Can you remember?
Yeah, I don't usually talk about this either, but when I was in grade school, I didn't even know, I knew I had been here before, but I didn't know what reincarnation was. I was in grade school.
Right.
But I remember telling my friends one day, I don't know, why I brought this up, but I said, well, I was a comedy actress back in the 1930s. I died in a plane crash. And, of course they thought I was insane for, how does a 9-year-old process that, right? And then actually when I got into my early 20s is when I really started to realize more of my psychic abilities. And I had a lot of dreams and connections to the actress Carol Lombard, who was a comedy actress in the 1930s that died in a plane crash.
Oh, wow.
Maybe I just worked for her. I don't.
The world around us is smart. We think your education should be smart too. With the FlexPath learning format from Capella University, you can set your own deadlines and leverage your experience to move forward at your pace. Visit capella.edu to learn more. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
Careers at Mayo Clinic are life-changing for employees and for our patients. The Center for Digital Health creates digital products and seamless patient experiences through simplicity, innovation, and the human touch. We are currently hiring in critical areas on our team, including product development, experience design, data and analytics, portfolio management, and more. Join us in the Center for Digital Health. Become part of Mayo Clinic's mission. We inspire hope and create new ways of delivering trusted healthcare solutions for patients around the world. Visit jobs.mayoclinic.org/CDH-jobs to find out more.
No, I can't say I was her for sure, but I've had so much. I didn't even know who this was. I didn't know who I was looking for, but I started going to the library, before we, could really go on the internet and find whatever you wanted. And I started reading about her, and the similarities were, astounding as far as, her mindset, her sense of humor, her swearing. She swore like a sailor. And also, and my son doesn't like to talk about this, but I'm going to bring it up because you can find it on YouTube. But my son had a 2-year experience between the ages of 4 and 6 that he lived at, or he was on the Titanic and died on the Titanic. And we ended up being in a TV show called Ghost Within My Child.
Right.
And and now it's on, you can find it on YouTube.
My friend's daughter, and her daughter ended up going to kindergarten with my daughter. She was the same way about the Titanic.
Really?
And from the time she was 2, she was telling her parents about being on this ship called Titanic. And they had never introduced her, like, they're not that type of people. They'd never introduced her to Titanic. They didn't have cable. They had a television to watch movies, but they never had cable or anything like that because they felt TV was a waste of time. There's no way at 2-3 years old that she should have known about what it was like on the Titanic. And, now that she's a 22, 23-year-old young lady, it is... it's a little bit different now, but I mean, up until, her preteens, she'd have a birthday theme every year, and every couple of years it would be about Titanic, the birthday theme.
It's amazing that once my son's story came out, and this, it was aired in 2013, there's so many of people that have contacted us and said, my child had that too. So many people that I've met along the way that, their son or daughter had memories of being on the Titanic and being fascinated with it as a child. Fair. So it was crazy. I mean, we went through, luckily, 2 years. He had night terrors, and he's an artist now. And when he became obsessed with it, he started drawing pictures. I think the first 2 weeks he drew like 50 pictures of the Titanic, and not by looking at a picture of it, drawing it from memory, watercolor paintings. One that just blows my mind is he did a pencil drawing of if you took the ship and cut it lengthwise, and he had every deck, every stairway, every room, every light fixture. It was insane. So, I think the kid was definitely, unfortunately, on the Titanic.
Yeah, that's exactly like my friend's daughter, where, I remember when I went to Las Vegas for my pre-divorce party with my buddies, I decided to take the Titanic exhibit at the Luxor. And here I am walking through the Luxor, and I promised her I would get her something from it, right? And lo and behold, at the end, like the tour is actually, it's a bunch of artifacts that were found from it, but I mean, it's very emotional. Like, it's a very heavy tour. And so we walk through it, and there's this giant piece that they've actually brought up from the side of the boat, and they show you what side of the boat that it's from, and then they have a piece of the original I think it was the original. I may be wrong on this, but a piece of the original iceberg that hit it. Mm. Now, that's probably far-fetched. Maybe I read that wrong. Probably did. Okay? But so I'm going through, and you get to the end, and there's this gentleman sitting there. And he happens to be a Titanic historian whom my friend's daughter knew his name. The author.
Oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I ended up getting her an autographed book from him outside the exhibit. It was like $50, but I didn't care, So
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. But this whole reincarnation thing, it trips me out a little bit. It trips me out. I got a psychic reading once that, and two different psychics told me the same story. I have no recollection, nothing. But the reason why I didn't make it as a fighter pilot in this lifetime was because I was a fighter pilot in World War II. I was flying for Great Britain. I got shot down by the Germans. Coincidentally, it was we later pieced it together that my former weekend host, my first ever weekend host of this show this back in our Blog Talk radio days, was the pilot of the plane that shot me down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I actually got shot down twice. The first time I survived, I parachuted out. And while I was in hospital recovering, my ex-wife was my nurse. And
oh my God.
And then the second time I bit the big one. Yeah.
Wow. And have you ever had any dreams or anything about it?
Nothing. Pardon me, 3 different psychics. 3 different.
Wow. That's so cool. Cool and not so cool that you died that way. But actually, where I saw a full body apparition was at the Titanic exhibit.
Really?
That we went to in Chicago.
Right.
And it was in the year 2000. They had it at the Museum of Natural History and Science Museum. And again, they had the whole thing. They had a piece of the ship, and they had so many artifacts. And they had one of the boilers from, the boiler room. And my son was really obsessed about the guys in the boiler room, that they died first. He used to cry over that and say, it shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened, because the doors came down automatically and trapped them in. So they, obviously were the first to die. And he used to, talk about that so much. And so when 2 years later, and it was my daughter, I've taken some flack online about, oh, great mom, 2 years of night terrors and you take the kid to the exhibit. But my daughter's a psychologist, and she actually suggested that we do this. Right. Because it actually brought closure to him. And he came out of all this, the obsession. But we get to a boiler that they had brought up from the floor of the ocean, and it had a light on it, it had curtains, and it had mirrors on either side, so it looked like a whole line of boilers. And so I looked to the right, I looked to the left, and I see a full figure oil painting of a guy shoveling coal into a boiler. And he's got the high neck collar and the suspenders, and he had a cap like Brian Johnson wears, the newsboy cap. And I remember looking over at it and thinking, boy, they really went out to do this. I mean, that's, to pay tribute to, the men that were in the boiler room. And I thought that was really wonderful that they did that. And we were with, a crowd of people, as you know, and as you kind of move closer to things. And so we went past the boiler and was going past the mirrors on the left side where I saw this painting. In my head, it was a painting. I got up close enough to it to look up at him, and he turned and looked at me. And when he turned and looked at me, of course I shut my eyes like, oh no, paintings don't move. And I closed my eyes for a second, open my eyes, and I'm looking in the mirror, and there is no man, and there's no oil painting.
No.
There's just mirrors.
Oh, there's nothing creepy about that.
No, and my daughter saw it too.
No.
I was not the only one. Her and she leaned over because we both, when a painting looks, I don't know. She said that she saw a guy standing where there was no room to stand.
Right. Susan, I'm going to let you hold on to that. Our audience in
Okay.
suspense right there. We'll come back to that after our break. Reincarnation, dreams, how true are they? Paranormal stories and audience questions coming up in hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Susan Masino is our guest. You can find her at susanmasino.com, where her books are located as well. Yeah, rock star extraordinaire Susan Masino returns right after this. Wow. Oh,
Isn't that crazy?
That gave me goosebumps. Don't say any more until we get back to the show here.
Yeah, I won't. Do I have time to take a quick break?
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick break too. Audience,
Okay.
Stay here. There's 121 of you. We'll be right back. We're just on commercial break.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. Hi, Doug. Hold on. Come here. Good boy.
Oh.
Yeah, he's sneaking in here. He's sniffing around for food. I swear there's food in here. I had peanut butter and celery earlier, so that's what he's smelling. Let's see. Anybody arrive while we were gone? Al Menial, how are you? Welcome. Anybody else? Oob to Joe's Bane, you've got aliens. I think that's about it. Simon Wales is Dogface Boy now. He changed his name. Oh, this is so much fun, Susan. Thank you for doing this tonight.
Oh, thank you. I love talking about this stuff.
I know you do. I know.
I do.
You're amazing that way.
Yeah, well, I get a lot of, she's crazy. Kind of used to that.
We should say hello to G-Pal Cruz, who's listening in on Spreaker right now. Welcome to the show. Hope you're enjoying. And if you're wondering, we don't get a lot of chatters in Spreaker, but all our main chatters are over on our YouTube channel, just so you know. But if you could, hit subscribe on Spreaker. That would be awesome, if you could. Because we are here 7 days a week. Yes, we are. Alex Christoph, how you doing? Otherwise known as Brazelhoff. Yep, there we go. Dave didn't step on Doug. Stop it. Thank you to Crazy Smith and Smithy for the awesome super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis, so thank you so much. No, I did not put raisins on my celery and peanut butter. I'm not that rebellious. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tanquum. Tanquum is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with author Susan Masino. She's one of my favorite guests of all time because we get to talk rock and roll. We get to talk about anything paranormal. Her website is susanmasino.com. All of her books are on there. You can go check them on out. They're online as well. Susan, always a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Dave. I'm having a blast, and thanks to everybody in the chat room. Thank you for people that said hello and said that I was doing a good job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we love you around here. We do. Right before the break, we were talking about reincarnation with your son and the Titanic, and you were just completing a story there right before we had to go to break. I was wondering if you'd like to finish that or you want to move on.
Well, yeah, I guess, we can, I was going to finish it up with, saying that, I saw the full body apparition and a lot of people do at the exhibits. Ghost adventures, lots of people have done investigations, and a lot of the people that work in these exhibits are used to seeing that. So, I did see a guy that, vanished in front of my eyes. And then, my son had been having night terrors for 2 years, and he would go to bed. Within an hour, he'd wake up, he'd be panicked, He'd come running out of his room. We had to make sure that he didn't fall down the stairs because he would run around the house like trying to get out, like looking for a way out. And so 2 years of this, we took him to the exhibit. And he was 6 years old at the time. And most of the kids at the exhibit are being kids. They're running around and, not really paying attention to anything. Well, my son had to look at every single item for minutes, so it took us a while to get through the whole thing. But about a week or two after we were there, he had a horrible night terror that was the turning point, because after this happened, he slowly stopped talking about the Titanic. But one night he was in bed, and I heard this something hitting his wall, in a rhythmic, boom, 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 boom. And, I got up and I went into his room, and he was up on all fours. He was shaking so violently that the bed was hitting the wall, and he was staring at the floor. And and the doctor told us, his doctor advised us to not shake him out of it, to let him kind of go through it, soothe him out of it, but don't abruptly shake him out of it. So I'm standing there, and I have no idea why he's like almost convulsing. He's shaking so violently. And just as I go to walk toward him, this voice comes out of him that was not a little kid's voice. It was a man's voice. And the man screamed, "She's going down." And he stayed fixated on staring at the floor. And I realized
the world around us is smart. We think your education should be smart too. With the FlexPath learning format from Capella University, you can set your own deadlines and leverage your experience to move forward at your pace. Visit capella.edu to learn more. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
Coming March 16th to Disney Plus. More heroes, more villains, more Marvel, all in one place. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Punisher, The Defenders, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Only on the streaming home of Marvel. All of these and more streaming this month on Disney Plus.
Oh my God, he's experiencing the sinking of the ship. And I finally, got to him, calmed him down, got him back to bed. He had sweat through his pajamas, I had to change his pajamas, and he went back to bed. And the next day, I brought it up to him, because we would talk about that stuff with him. And because I didn't want to suppress it, I didn't want him to feel like he couldn't talk about it or be embarrassed about it. And I said, you scared Mama last night so badly. I didn't know if I should call the ambulance. I mean, you were shaking so violently. And, he always had such a cute little dry humor attitude. And he just looked at me and he goes, "Well, Mama, the water was freezing, right?" And then he just walked away. Yeah, you're right. The water was freezing, and that would explain you shaking like that. But slowly after that dream, he stopped. It'd be a couple days. He'd talk about it. It'd be a week. Then a couple of weeks, he just slowly stopped talking about it. So, yeah, I believe in reincarnation.
Wow, no kidding. How can you not after that experience it? But as a parent going through that, knowing that you have no control over helping your child through this, how did you cope as a parent watching your child have these night terrors where you can't do anything to help them?
Oh, it was heartbreaking. I mean, I would cry with him a lot because he was so heartbroken. He used to sob over the men in the boiler room specifically. He used to talk about how there were mistakes made. They were in a hurry to finish the construction of the ship. So he was very fixated on the actual building of the ship and the fact that it shouldn't have sank like it did. To one point, he one day when I knew that we weren't dealing with just an active imagination, is he came home with another picture of the Titanic, of course, and he had smoke coming out of 3 out of the 4 smokestacks. And I remember asking him, I said, what is this, sweetie? I said, there's no smoke coming out of this one. Did you not get time to finish it? And again, he looked at me, like I should know better. And he said, Mama, that's a dummy stack. They didn't use it. What? It's what? And he goes, they did it for show. They didn't use it. It's a dummy stack. Well, years later, of course, that is true. There was the last smokestack was just put there for show. It was not used. So, and I wanted him to be able, since it was coming out so much, I wanted him to be able to experience it and get it out, and not tell him, it's just your imagination, or, you don't talk about that, because people get very uncomfortable, of course. And they don't want their kids, who wants to know that their kid, died on the Titanic? It's a horrible, horrible thing. But we made it through 2 years of it. And now, and he's an incredible artist now. And he's a 3D animator and a visual developer. So his artwork has lived on.
Well, that's good. At what point in time did your son start to come to grasps with what had happened and really calm down about the situation?
I think after he saw the exhibit, that was a very big turning point of him to actually maybe see that it was being honored. And I think that kind of brought some peace to him, and then it brought up, the worst night terror that he had, but then he was able to let it go. So, that was, oh my God, such a relief. I mean, we really thought after 2 years that how long is this going to go on? Are we going to go through this for his whole childhood? But when he was older, they interviewed him when he was, I believe, 19 at the time. And he doesn't have a lot of memory of it, even though we have a ton of pictures, a ton of drawings that he made at the time. But he said in the interview, he remembers the Titanic being as familiar as his house was. So he literally knew the inside of the Titanic, not just a picture of it.
Nicola is asking, do you think your son was a worker there in one of those boiler rooms?
I think it's possible. I think that there's two theories. One was that he could have been a worker. Another one is that he could have been, and I know another man has claimed to be this person, so I don't want to disparage him in any way. But when we did the TV show, they seemed to think, the producers who were, filming, seemed to think that he might have been Thomas Andrews, who designed the ship. And he designed all the White Star Line ships, and then it was his custom to go out on the maiden voyage every time. So he was on the ship. But in the movie, even in the Titanic, he turns down getting on a lifeboat. And at the time, Thomas Andrews was married with a daughter, and he gave up his place because because of who he was, they were going to let him get on a lifeboat, and he refused to. And so it's very sad to think about it. But what's really crazy, and that this didn't make it into the TV show, they didn't have enough time for it. But they went online and found a blueprint of the Titanic. And they brought it to the house where they wanted me to pretend that I, had gotten it for my son as a gift. And they wanted, we spread it out on the table, and they're filming. And we, laid it out. I'd never seen it before. He had never, I don't think he'd ever seen it before, at least in this lifetime. And the camera guy says to me, ask him about the dummy stack, the smokestack. And so I did. I said, he had not looked at this blueprint for more than 5 minutes or less. And I said, so where is the dummy stack? Where is the smokestack that they didn't use? It took him seconds to point it out on the blueprint where it was, and that there were no intake valves, to let the steam in and out. So that proves that, that was the dummy stack. And I remember the sound guy and the camera guy looked at each other and just went, what the? They were floored by that. So, he could have been Thomas Andrews, which is cool because he's a very successful 3D artist now.
That is just incredible. Just incredible. I mean, at points when you're watching your son go through this, how amazed are you as a parent and how accurate the words he's using are at such a young age? Because at the time, you weren't promoting this.
Oh, no.
You're trying
to figure
out. You're trying to figure out the mystery. So, what kind of detective work did you have to do?
Pretty much. I mean, it was just he's the one that became obsessed with the ship, and all he talked about, his main concern was how it was constructed. So he seemed to know things that just like a passenger on the ship probably wouldn't know. So, and the way that he was drawing the ship, that kid, he drew on tablecloths, notebooks, art projects. One time I had to tape 20 pieces of paper together across the living room floor so he could draw the Titanic as big as he possibly could. And this is between 4 and 6 years old. So by what he was fascinated with, I just kind of, figured, well, he knew something about the construction of the ship. And that what really, and of course, my husband didn't believe me at first. My daughter was very skeptical. And the turning point for her is when she came to visit on a holiday, and they had come out with a CD-ROM game of the Titanic, where you were on the ship, and they would, it was a mystery game. So they would say, okay, we want you to go up to deck C, port side, whatever, that sort of thing. And so I had my daughter play the game with him. And not 20 minutes later, she came running out of the room and grabbed me, and she goes, he knows his way around the ship. And I said, yeah, I've been telling you that. And she was blown away because he was like, don't go up that staircase. That's going to take you to the bridge. You need to go over to the starboard side and go up to deck C. And then, he was ordering her where to go to find these objects because it's a mystery game. And he knew exactly where to go. So it just, it was very mind blowing at the time and hard to watch.
How much did you put yourself into learning and researching about reincarnation because of this? Because, one of the things, I haven't done as much research into it as I possibly could, but one of the things I have learned is tragedy seems to turn around the spirits very, very quickly because they feel like they missed something and had to come back. Even though they're trying to get back into the previous life, it just doesn't work that way. Have you heard that too? And what did you learn about reincarnation as you went through this?
It just, it seems to be a very old belief, even though they edited it out of the Bible. It's not in the Bible. And it was amazing. When you talk about being a pilot in World War II, the very first show that they did, and there's so many kids that, have been through all these different experiences that they lived through in a past life. And the premiere show, and he's still, you can find him on the news. He was, probably around 2, 3, 4 years old. It's usually around 3 when they start, coming out with a lot of memories. But he remembered vividly being shot down in World War II. He knew the ship that he was on. He knew the plane that he flew. He knew where he was shot down at. It was crazy stuff. So when you see other people, other kids coming out and having these not dreams but visions and memories, it just I guess I don't know why, but I've always believed in reincarnation because when I as I said before, when I was a little kid, for some reason I knew I had been here before, and I wasn't thrilled, to tell you the truth.
Right. Oh man, the whole reincarnation thing just kind of bugs me a little bit, because it really, if it is 100% true, and in your case it is, it really sheds a strange light on what happens in the afterlife. You being a psychic intuitive who has gone through this, communicated with spirits, what have spirits told you, or did you ever ask spirits about reincarnation?
I've never really asked in my connection, but I've had, say Bon Scott. Okay. He has come to me in several dreams. And one night, this was when I was writing the Let There Be Rock book. And I was literally covering 32 years of history. And I was so, meticulous about it that I had broken their history down a week at a time. I mean, it was grueling work. And even though I love them, but I had one night I completely lost it. I was like having a panic attack. I was hyperventilating, and I thought, I got to pull myself together here, I think I swear to God, I was writing about the year 1977 for months. I didn't think I'd ever get out of that period. And I went to sleep that night and I prayed to Bon. And I said to Bon, Bon, if you can help me in any way, please, I need something here. And again, a very vivid dream. He and I were in a cabin somewhere, and he was laughing at me. He was dancing around, and he was saying, "Oh, he's like, come on, Susie." He says, "It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine." He said, "The book's going to be great. You're going to make some money." He said, "It's all fine." And he was, and he looked exactly as he did, when he passed. And in life, he was 9 years older than me. And so I said to him, it's so sad, Bon, that you passed. I said, come on. I mean, 33, why? And he just laughed at me and he said, "Oh, come on, Susie, it was my time. It was my time." And okay, so I kind of accepted that. And then he said something to me like, when I get to be your age. And I looked at him and I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "You're older than me." And then he laughed again and he said, I'm still 33. And the next day I got up and, knock on wood, I have not had a major panic attack since that dream. Wow. So, and I don't know if Bon is reincarnated, I have no idea, but I know that I've seen him in dreams where he is so alive and, so vivid that it's kind of hard to believe that he's completely gone.
Still rocking on the other side, waiting for the bandmates. Well, he's got Malcolm now. He's got Malcolm,
yeah. And Charlie Watts. I mean, just think of the band he's got, Oh.
I often wonder, on Facebook, they'll often post, we got about 2 minutes to go here. On Facebook, they often post, they'll put up like 9 characters. Who would you love to see in concert again? I would love to, see Bon Scott with AC/DC. I would put that up there with seeing Jimi Hendrix. I would have loved to have seen Jimi Hendrix. I mean, just the stuff he did in 2.5 years.
I know.
He did 30 years of work in 2.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, the same with Bon too,
Yeah.
He had literally, when he passed, because of the bands that he was in, the Valentines and Fraternity, he was literally, by the time he passed away, he had been on the road for 13 years.
Right.
So he was worn out. He really was.
Yeah. Man, has he come to you since?
He has. He comes to me. It's been a while, but he comes into my dreams. The last time I saw him, we were just hanging out, and it was weird because we were somewhere where people kept taking pictures of us, and I'm thinking, well, because he's Bon Scott, and someone just asked me the other day, do I have any pictures of Bon that no one's ever seen? And I worked for a paper where we had a photographer. And it was before cell phones and all that. So all the pictures that I could have taken, but didn't because I didn't bring a camera. But then I think if I would have had a camera, it wouldn't have been the same. They wouldn't have acted as relaxed if, I just, I knew better. I knew that I'm just going to hang with these guys and be a friend and just kind of get a kick out of, what they do. But all the pictures I miss taking now, I wish I would have had a camera.
Yeah, no kidding. Susan, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we have the lovely and amazing Susan Masino here for another 30 minutes on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Rock and roll and paranormal. This is what I love about her, is she is just so electric when it comes to her storytelling experiences and what she has documented in her great books that you can find at SusanMasino.com. And I highly suggest that you add these to your library inventory. We will continue with Susan, talking ghosts, rock and roll, your questions from the audience if you're in the chat rooms. Spaced Out Radio continues as we pass the halfway point right after this. All right, we're clear.
This is going very well.
Oh, so excellent. So excellent. I'm having so much fun with you tonight. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I've looked forward to this since you invited me on because I love talking to you.
Oh, I love
so
talking
easy
to you, too. Let's see here.
Yeah, you're easy to talk to.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
So I just saw a question here. Any stories about Phil Lynott or Lemmy? I can save that. I did meet Lemmy. So I did get to meet him and hang out with him for a little bit.
Oh, I would have loved to have met Lemmy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was on my bucket list.
the famous pose.
Yeah. I have a funny story about it. I'll save it because it was very, very cute of him. And he doesn't come across as cute.
No. But you know what? If anybody lived like a rock star, it was Lemmy. Like, till the day he died. I mean, there were, like he abandoned his children, and his children understood that that's the rock star thing to do, and they hated him for it, but they ended up loving him for it in the end, and just everything about it. The stories that because he was very open about his rock star lifestyle. I mean, how he would be at a bar, he would, call up his dealer, grab a big, Ziploc bag of cocaine, throw the cocaine all over the bed, and have women up there snorting and having an orgy all night long. And Lemmy is not a good-looking guy, but it just went with the rock and roll territory.
He was Lemmy, though,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, my God.
But that's exactly it. I remember watching his funeral. They did it live on YouTube. And you can still go back there and watch it. It was incredible. But, just the guys the musicians and everybody who went to speak with them, he was the most giving guy in the world. Like, he didn't, it was about the music. Like, he didn't care if he had $100 or the millions that he made,
Sure. Yeah.
It was about the music and playing in front of people and being as dirty and as rock star as you could. That was his life.
In the U.S. Army, you can make a choice to make your mark. With over 200 fields to choose from, you can join forces with us and take on anything. Visit GoArmy.com to answer, what's your warrior?
Did you know that you could invest in crypto through your retirement account? That's right. iTrust Capital allows you to invest in over 24 of the most popular cryptocurrencies. And unlike the stock market, you can buy and sell 24 hours a day. With iTrust Capital, you also get the tax benefits of a retirement account while investing in crypto. Set up an account at itrustcapital.com today, and you'll even get a $100 Bitcoin funding reward. Go to itrustcapital.com. Taxes and conditions may apply. Fees apply. Bitcoin funding reward subject to terms and conditions. Cryptocurrencies are a speculative investment with risk of loss. iTrust Capital Inc. does not provide legal investment or tax advice. Consult with a qualified legal investment or tax professional.
Yeah, he lived it well.
Oh, yeah.
He did.
I mean, you think about it. He played gigs up until 3 days before he died, 3 or 4 days before he died. Like it was time to rock. There was no time for anything else. But apparently he was quite. The stage presence was one thing, but like if you ran into him at the Rainbow or something like that, he always had time to take a picture with fans or to chat with fans, and not many rock stars are like that.
Yeah, he's amazing. He was, and that's what I love about AC/DC too, is that all the guys in the band are like that.
Yeah.
And you just what's so funny is that I always used to tease them about the fact that they were wearing the same clothes, on the Ballbreaker tours when I met them in '77. They obviously saved a lot of money on wardrobe, except for Angus's suits.
Yeah, no kidding. God, I love those suits.
I know. He's so cute.
Oh, yeah. Has any of them, I mean, considering your closeness to AC/DC, has any of them ever just said, hey, this is for you, whether it's, something special?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I have a guitar pick from Angus that he threw at me because they had opened with, they were on the road with Aerosmith, so they were working their way up the ladder. And I asked him in the dressing room that night afterwards, I was asking him about merchandise because they didn't have any. And I said, where's the T-shirts? Where's the guitar picks? I mean, what's going on? And he called us a name, the Americans. I don't want to say what, but he flicked his guitar pick at me. And he said, oh, like I'm going to, spend a lot of money on something I throw away. Now, this is a guy now that's embroidered on pajamas and socks and stuff, so, But probably one of the nice... they've done a bunch of nice things for me, but when Let There Be Rock came out and they were on the Black Ice tour, they did sell it on their website for a while. So, and they've never done that with anybody, any other book. So that was super special to have that happen.
No way. That is great.
Yeah.
Hold on, we've got about 5 seconds here. Hold on right there.
Okay.
We're past the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate it. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Susan Masino. She is the author of a couple of great books. If you're a fan of AC/DC, it is called AC/DC FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the World's True Rock and Roll Band. That's on her website, by the way. She's got, let's see, books-wise, we got Let There Be Rock, and what's the other one here? Why am I missing it all of a sudden? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? I had it right here. Susan, help me out here. What's your other one?
Let's see, we've got Rock and Roll Fantasy.
That's the one.
Let There Be Rock, FAQ, Family Tradition, 3 Generations of Hank Williams. The Secrets of the Universe, my paranormal book, and Famous Wisconsin Musicians, where Les Paul wrote the foreword for me.
My God,
so,
what was it like? What was it like meeting Les Paul?
Oh my gosh, so crazy because he was a Wisconsin boy, and I was asked by a small publisher. They were doing a series called Famous Wisconsin. And they asked me to write the book Famous Wisconsin Musicians. And at the time, I hate to be sarcastic, but at the time I thought, whoa, wow, what are there 4? I had no idea. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Well, when you really look at the history of music, not only did we have Les Paul, but, Steve Miller, Liberace, Ben Sidran, just everybody, the guy in Three Dog Night, one of the guys in REM, one of the guys in Talking Heads, just a ton of guys, a ton of musicians. So when I got to Les Paul, of course, I'm very methodical. So it was in the middle because I was going alphabetically. And I thought, how am I going to talk to Les Paul? I had no idea that I would be able to reach him in any way, right? So I go online and I find a website that was set up for him by a fan. And so I emailed this one website, said, I'm writing a book. I'd really like to get a hold of Mr. Paul. He sends me his manager's email, just like that. So I thought, okay, well, this is a good start. And I emailed his manager, and he was living in New Jersey and performing at the Iridium Jazz Club every Monday night. He did that right up until right before he passed away. And I got a hold of his manager, and I told him, what I wanted to do, and that I wanted to do an interview or two with Mr. Paul. And he gives me his phone number. And I said, well, do you want to set up an interview? And he says, nah, just call him after 4 p.m. He sleeps late. So, and he was in his 80s at the time. So when I literally, and I can't tell you how intimidating it is to call Les Paul on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay. I was a bit terrified. I get him on the phone, and he was like talking to a teenager. He remembered everything. He remembered dates, names, venues, stories, just amazing. And one thing led to another. I asked him to write a foreword for me. He was the only one out of all the people that I interviewed that I asked to write a foreword. And he said, he used to call me Doll. And he says, of course, Doll. He says, when do you need it? So he wrote the foreword for me. And then I went out to the Iridium Jazz Club. I went to New York. I saw him play. I think 3 times, eventually 3 different times at that club. But that night I did a radio interview, the Joey Reynolds show at 4 a.m. And Les was back home in Jersey, and Les called in because he knew Joey also. But Les Paul he was amazing. One of the funniest things that he said on the phone to me, one of our first parts of the interview, we did 2 or 3 interviews. He said, I said, what was your first gig that you really, remember? And he said that it was like I want to say the Pabst Theater or something like that in Milwaukee. And he said, I was 13. And he said, and I had a kid playing piano for me, and it was a great gig. And he talked about it a little bit. He was 13 at the time. And he says, yeah, you might have heard of the piano player's name's Liberace. And after the phone call, I looked, brought out the calculator. Liberace was 9, and Les was 13, and they played a gig together. So Les was amazing about his memory. He remembered everything, anything that you ever wanted to talk to him about, no matter when it happened. He remembered all of it. It was really incredible.
What amazes me about Les Paul is he hated Gibson. He hated Gibson. Like, he made Gibson guitars.
Yes, he did.
with the Les Paul versions. And he hated what they did to his guitars.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, he did.
And yet, you look today, it is still the most famous, next to a Fender Stratocaster, it's the most famous guitar in the world. Every rock star has to have a Gibson Les Paul Custom in their collection.
You got to have one. And the funniest thing is back in 2004, he was in Wisconsin, and the governor, had a big party and a dinner for him. And I was at the dinner that night, and everybody was there. Garbage, Butch Vig, all of them. Steve Miller, Ben Sidran, Clyde Stubblefield, Les Paul. They were all there, and it was really great because I got them to autograph my book. And there was a guy that had, oh my God, I can't think of the name, Rickenbacker. He had a Rickenbacker guitar that was lying on the table after the whole dinner, and they played, and they performed and everything. And Les Paul took out a Sharpie, and on the guitar head, he wrote over Rickenbacker, Les Paul.
Nice. Just total rock star to the end.
Yeah, he did. I couldn't believe he was going to do that, but I thought, he's Les Paul. He can do whatever he wants. And yeah, he did. He wrote right over Rickenbacker, Les Paul.
Wow, that is awesome. One of the most famous and interesting musicians that you got to know was Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead.
I got to meet him. I didn't really get to know him very well, but it was a memorable meeting because I saw him play. He played. His band played at the Headliners, the club in Madison. I think probably early 2000s. And I wanted to meet him, because he's Lemmy, for God's sake.
Yes.
And so a friend of mine, got me backstage, and it was a very small dressing room, very narrow, not a lot of room. And I'm standing like right next to him. And he's drinking, he's smoking, he's just looking around, and he's right there. And he leans right in and shoves a pack of cigarettes into my face, and he goes, "You want to smoke?" And I just shook my head. I said, no, thank you. And then he grabbed his bottle of Jack Daniels, he shoved that in my face, and he goes, "You want a drink?" And I was like, no, thank you. And then he goes, "Oh, then what the hell do you want?" And then I said, "Can I have an autograph?" And then he burst out laughing. He got a big smile on his face, and he goes, "Of course you're going to have an autograph. What do you want me to sign?" And then, we hung out and talked for a while. So
wow,
he wasn't as scary as I thought he was going to be.
Yeah. Every time, and I mentioned this in a commercial break to you, but for our listeners, my business partner in Spaced Out Radio owns a famous bar in Vancouver. And every time Motorhead came to Vancouver, Lemmy would go into the bar after the show. And, it was one of those things where he had his spot. And when Lemmy came into a bar, he chose his spot, and that's where it is. And he would pose for photographs and everything. There aren't a lot of rock stars like Lemmy Kilmister anymore because it's become so corporate, very business-like. Those who survived the drug years are promoting much more to the younger generations of musicians, stay away from the drugs. I mean, pot is one thing, but the heavy stuff, the cocaine, the heroin, and everything along those lines. Are we at an end of an era for the legitimate rock star?
I'd like to say yes, but how many people do we still see die too young? So many musicians have passed away, that still succumb to that kind of thing. And it's unfortunate, but it seems to be, it's kind of part of the thing. It's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And drugs are part of it. But what I saw, coming up from the 70s into the 80s, when cocaine came into the picture as a party drug, if you will, people didn't know what it was. They didn't know it was that addicting. They didn't know that it, could eventually destroy their lives. It's sad. It's sad to see. Even Bon dying of drinking too much. And he was a little guy. He wasn't very big at all. And he died with, 7 double whiskeys in his stomach that night. So, but we still see it happen to this day, especially with a lot of the rap artists and stuff are still dying from overdoses. And it's a shame. It really is, because they're so talented. They have so much to give the world.
Very true. Very true on that. A lot of musicians are very spiritual people, very depressed people, anxious, actually introverted, type people. Out of all the ones you've talked to, and I realize that you said off the beginning of the show that, there are certain things, like when you're there, you're doing business, you're doing music business. But, as an intuitive, did you ever look into a musician's eyes, no matter who it is, and just kind of look at them and just say, you know what, you've got some real spiritual stuff hanging out? Like, did you know what was going on? Could you read them that well at that time?
I think I definitely could with AC/DC because, I met them when they were, no one knew them over here. And the funniest thing, but I really believe in, talk about reincarnation. The connection that I've had with them, I think, is a past life connection. Because they always treated me, not that they didn't offer, especially Bon, to do other things that we did not do, but they basically treated me like a little sister. They teased me, they picked on me, and Bon especially. I mean, oh my gosh, it was just to hang out with him and to watch him, especially to watch him play in a club and not a stadium, where you're right up in front of the band and, he's right there sweating on you. He was so amazing, and he, just looking at the way he wrote, he was always picking up things. He was very, I think he was very gifted that way, where he would, come up with a song out of almost anything that happened in front of him. So he had a gift, and they all did. I mean, Malcolm and Angus, just otherworldly, in a way of like, that they were born for that. And I guess I did pick up on that. And the first night that I met them, I literally, and this turned into a 40+ year joke now, that for some reason that night, I saw them play, okay? I did not know what they sounded like, had not a clue of what I was in for. I saw them, and this is August of 77. They were playing everything, Live Wire, Problem Child, a whole lot of Rosie, Dirty Deeds, The Jack. They had all those songs already. And I knew the night I saw them, I mean, the hair on my arms literally stood straight up. And I said to them at the end of the night when we were, just talking, and I don't even know why I chose this band. It just popped into my head. But I said, and, some people have given me, crap about this, about, what is she, psychic? Well, yeah, I kind of am. I said that night, I told them, I said, it's going to take you guys a couple of years. I said, 2-3 years. It's going to take a while. But I said, someday, you guys are going to be as big as the Rolling Stones. And that has turned into an ongoing joke now between us. But they are the only band in history to ever co-headline a show with the Rolling Stones.
That's amazing. I mean, even when you see, and AC/DC took a lot of heat for this, with Axl Rose coming in to fill in for Brian Johnson, who is going through some hearing issues with tinnitus and other issues. I mean, you look at Axl Rose on stage when he is with them. He looked like a young man again, hanging out with his heroes. I mean, that's the power of the band.
Oh, yeah, the kid in the candy store, and I have to laugh at this because, of course, I was there. I went and saw them in September of 2016 in Atlanta when they had to postpone dates, and then they added Axl. So I went there, skeptical. I saw Bon, I saw Brian, you got Axl? I mean, Axl Rose, to me, sorry for all your Axl Rose fans, but I'm thinking, he doesn't deserve this. What's he doing on stage with my guys?
If
so
anybody deserved it. Anybody.
Yeah, well, I mean, I went there with a bit of an attitude, okay? But he did an amazing job. I was very impressed with him. But I caught something that most people would not even notice. But when they first came out on stage, Axl was doing a little bit of a dance backwards toward the drum riser. At the same moment, Angus is coming in his direction. And I'm thinking, oh my God, oh no. Because, that's a talent to not run into Angus on stage, okay? That it takes a talent. So I see this happening and I'm thinking, oh my God, no, don't. And Axel must have seen him out of the corner of his eye because he took his heel and he did a 180 and went in the other direction and missed Angus like by seconds. And I laughed to myself because I thought, yeah, it's not as easy as you thought it was going to be. But he did great. He sang one of my all-time favorites is when If You Got Blood, if you want blood, you got it. They haven't done that for a long time live, and Axel did that song that night. I think I actually got tears in my eyes. I was so happy. So
every GNR concert that I've been to, they've always sang Whole Lotta Rosie.
Aw.
Every
so
GNR
cool.
concert. I've only been to 7, but every time I've been to GNR, Whole Lotta Rosie.
Yep. Yeah, he did really well. And again, he seemed, I could see that he felt humbled to be on stage with them. You could just kind of tell by his demeanor. And that night in Atlanta, I mean, everybody was there. Guns N' Roses were there, Seven Dust, the actors from Walking Dead. I mean, it was an insane night. So everybody was there to see it. And Axel, he brought it home. He did a great job.
It's because he's the second greatest ever next to Freddie Mercury.
Oh, you got to throw Bon in there. I'm sorry. Bump him down.
I know you do. I know you do, but...
Health. The importance of health. Blue Health. The experience of what it means to be healthy. Because taking care today leads to an even healthier tomorrow. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Mississippi. It's good to be healthy. It's good to be blue.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
I look at Bon's lyrics.
You look on my wall right here. This is Axl Rose territory here.
Respect to Axl. He did a great job, and he did what they needed him to do. And AC/DC is famous for the fact that even if they have to postpone a show, which is very rare, they always make up those shows. They put it at the end of the tour or whatever, but they are very particular about not disappointing the fans. So when, Axl got a lot of grief from oh my God, why is he taking over? He came through. They needed him to finish the tour, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
So
incredible. Yeah. Absolutely incredible. We only got 4 minutes left with you tonight. 4 minutes. It's flown on by.
I know.
What are you working on? What are you working on now?
I've got 2 things, actually. I was invited by the Library of Congress about a year ago to write an essay for their records, and I did one on Tutti Frutti by Little Richard. And I just got invited a few weeks ago to write one on Hank Williams Sr.'s Lovesick Blues. So I'll be writing another essay that will be in the Library of Congress.
Cool.
Which is pretty cool. And I am working on my life stories. I'm writing them in short story form because, as you said, I got a million of them. So I'm getting them on paper finally. All of them.
I still think, and I believe my audience would agree with me on this, Susan, that when you're done these projects, please, for the love of God, write the Paranormal Rockstar book. There are so many. There are so many
great
stories.
Idea.
I mean, I can guarantee you, our music man, Bumblefoot, he would definitely tell you his story about what happened in Plovdiv, where he got shoved down on stage by a ghost. And the ghost,
wow.
Yeah, they were playing Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. And Bumblefoot has never fallen on stage. And previous to that, his guitar is set up so it never goes out of tune. And his top string kept going out of tune. And so he figured there was something on stage. And if you go back to our October 2019 Halloween show, He tells the story on this show. And he goes a little bit later, he was doing the solo for Comfortably Numb, and he felt like he was shoved. And he plays a heavy guitar. Like, his guitar is 25 pounds, 30 pounds being a double neck guitar. Yeah. And he fell first time ever on stage. And he's like, well, I didn't really fall. He goes, I was shoved. Something shoved him. And then their keyboardist, Derek Sherinian, had his sunglasses sitting on top of his head, and something smacked his head out of the blue. Something smacked his head like just whap. And his sunglasses went falling into a crack that was on the stage, and they couldn't get him out.
I love stuff like that. I mean, he didn't get hurt,
No.
Because you can be injured or hurt by something like that. But I think that's cool.
But I mean,
I love that stuff.
But I mean, if you go into Aliens, there's Sammy Hagar, Billy Corgan.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Robbie Williams.
John Lennon.
John
Lennon saw a UFO.
I really believe that would be a power book for you. Book.
I appreciate that idea. I like it.
You need to write it. There's only one person who could write it, and that's you. Just saying.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
45 seconds left. Tell everybody where they can find your books and more information on you.
Okay. All my books are on Amazon under Susan Masino. You can go to my website, susanmasino.com. I'm on Twitter and Facebook. I'm trying to get the courage together to do live TikToks. So I can actually take people's questions and things like that. So I'm trying to get over my shyness of making my own video on TikTok. So, but I'm out there, I'm easy to find.
I know, and I can guarantee that you'll hear from Susan again on this show in the next few months, because that's what we do. Every few months we bring her on just to hang out, talk some music. It's a paranormal. She's amazing that way. Susan, I love all your stories, and once again, thank you for being one of my most favorite guests on this show of all time. You're amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Dave, and I love your show, and I love talking to you. You're one of my favorite hosts on the airwaves, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp. Another great story from Swamp Dweller, and John Hudson has the UFO report. All next. You're wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
I love you.
I had a great time. I love you too, and whenever you need me, I'm here. So.
Oh, I know. I promise you that it'll be again, because I love hearing you. I want to get you on with Duke Sullivan. He's in our chat room as World Bigfoot Radio, because he's a former rock and roll journalist too.
Oh, cool.
You guys, yeah. I would love to hear your stories. Combine them right there. Just hear them all. It would be great.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get into any Van Halen stuff tonight.
No, next time.
Yeah,
next time.
Because I've got a cool story about Eddie haunting me the weekend that he passed away. He passed away on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I wrote about it, and it's up there to find. But they did a special room on the 7th floor of the Sheraton Hotel called the Roth Room.
Right.
And it's dedicated to the band, and I got to do a book signing there and stayed there for 2 nights.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and I think and they didn't call it the Van Halen room because they couldn't get clearance to use that.
Yeah.
So they called it the Roth Room, and I have a feeling that when Eddie was getting ready to leave, that he was haunting us that weekend.
Oh, wow.
He did a couple of things that were pretty funny. And I kept calling him Eddie because I didn't know he was that ill at the time, and Eddie Money had already passed. And I had partied with Eddie Money at the Sheraton years before, so I kept calling this person that kept doing stuff to us Eddie the whole weekend. So
Weird.
Crazy stuff.
Much love, my dear. I got to get going here.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Isn't she awesome? Susan is amazing. Absolutely love her. She is just one of those guests that she brings it. Every time she's here, she just brings it. And not a lot of guests can do that. Not a lot of guests can just, you can fire a question or a comment at them, and they're just like, boom, they're right there. They're right there. That's why I love her. And she's so nice. So nice. We love her. Susan Masino, everybody, SusanMasino.com. And we will have her on again, probably in a few months. And continue on from there. Yeah. God, I love her. It's amazing. We got a couple of minutes left. The fedora-wearing John Hudson coming up soon. Did I send John the link? I don't know if I did or not. Oh, I did. Yes, I did. There it is. Want to make sure. Fun times, man. Fun times. Oh, that's the wrong one. Son of a gun. I'm glad I just caught that. Shoot. Let's go. Here. And then let's go here. Close, close. That goes there. Edit track. Whew, am I glad I caught this. There we go. That was a close one. That was a close one. Almost blew it. Morning, Chris Mo. How you doing? Yeah, World Bigfoot Radio, Super Duke. You and Susan would be a great show. Just saying. Just an FYI, Duke is wearing his famous pastel blue cape today. Pastel blue cape for Super Duke. Thank you, Alan. Glad you're here. Oh, what did Evan ask? What did Evan ask? I missed the first hour. Any good? Yeah, it was all right. It was all right. Duked Out Radio. No, Duked Out Radio's tomorrow night. I like that. Duked Out Radio. Thank you to Crazy Smith and Smithy for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love and support of SOR. Reminder, there will be no show here on Friday. It's a rarity because Lynn Wallington and I will be making our way to San Francisco for UFO Con 2022. And here comes hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Tanquam. Tanquam is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time once again where we head into the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller has a great story for you tonight.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp.
All right, tonight we're going to steal one from Swamp Dweller from my channel, the other channel besides this. Me and Merle put together called Canada's Great Unknown, and this is something that we have a lot of fun with as we are building this channel. We'd love it if you all head over to YouTube, type in Canada's Great Unknown, and hit subscribe there. We'd greatly appreciate it. And here is tonight's story. When I was a child, I used to visit my grandparents' house in the Harrison Hot Springs area. It was a fun time had all around, as my grandparents would take me out to the lake fishing. It's a lake where I learned to water ski as well. And of course, going into my teenage years, I learned how to talk and pick up girls on the beaches. I didn't have the best childhood growing up. I was raised by my mom. I had no idea who my dad was, as I've never met him. And with my mom's troubles, I'd spend nearly every weekend with my grandparents, so that way I could get some normal semblance of life. I'm forever grateful to them for that. When my grandpa would take me out for ice cream in town, I would always ask him about these carvings of what I called monkeys as a kid. He always corrected me, telling me they were Sasquatch, a big, hairy creature that roamed around the forests of this area. Grandma and Grandpa annually would attend the local tourism event, Sasquatch Days, where the entire town would be turned into one big event for Bigfoot. It was awesome when I got to go to town with them. Grandma always used to tease me that one time when she baked an apple pie, a Sasquatch actually walked up to the kitchen window and took the pie and ate it. All she saw was the back end of this creature walking away from the house, eating her pie. I never believed that one, but with my grandma and her awesome sense of humor, I never could tell whether she was being serious or not. Grandpa, on the other hand, claimed to have had a sighting back in 1963. A couple of years after he and Grandma had moved to the area. He said one day he was mowing his lawn when he saw the dog going nuts. They had a black lab back then. The dog was barking and ran as fast as it could around the side of the house. When Grandpa went to see what was up, thinking it was a big old black bear that had been seen in the area recently, he saw his trusty dog barking at something on 2 feet. Grandpa yelled at what he thought was a bear standing on its hind legs to get on out of here. But when the thing turned to look at my grandpa, he said it was no bear. This thing, a Bigfoot, snorted back at him, then walked 50 or so feet into the forest and disappeared. This now brings us to today. A few years ago, after my grandmother passed, I ended up inheriting their house in Harrison. I was the only grandchild of my grandparents, and well, right before my grandpa passed away in 2009, he took me into his study where he told me that he and Grandma wanted me to have the house because it was one of the only places during my childhood where I had positive and good memories. So after Grandma passed in 2013, I took over the house, using it as a weekend getaway for my wife and our daughter. The house is situated on the east side of the lake. Without giving away my location too much, it's surrounded by forest, horseshoed in with my closest neighbor being about half a kilometer away. It wasn't any surprise to wake up to wild animals in the yard. Bears, deer, raccoons, the odd mountain lion. It was a nice place to get away from our bustling lives in the lower mainland. It was a long weekend, at the beginning of August for BC Day, when we went up to the house for a weekend getaway. We got there on Thursday evening, and Friday I took my daughter and her friend out ATVing, before getting home just in time for dinner. My wife, Jenny, was glad that we were home because our German Shepherds, Chester and Lily, were going crazy outside during the afternoon. We both thought it was probably a bear roaming around, as the dogs usually went nuts when wildlife came onto their property. The dogs were inside with my wife, and we didn't think anything more of it. But that evening, we sat down at the kitchen table to play some games. We were playing Monopoly when we heard our two dogs start to growl, and they made their way to the back door before starting to bark again. I got up to go see what the dogs were barking at, and I could see that the sensor light on the garage was set off. I reminded my dogs it was just bears, then I went back to play games. My dogs were very well trained and behaved, so they went back and laid down on their beds. I went back to the table to continue kicking ass on my family at Monopoly. I passed the dice over to my daughter, but she was caught in a gaze, looking out the dining room window. "You okay, sweetie?" I asked. My daughter pointed at the window. Daddy? What's that?" I looked out the window, and there was this face looking back at us. It was this massive, bulbous, pointed head. The eyes had yellow glint to them. My wife looked and started to scream, which sent the dogs back into a frenzy. I immediately called the dogs to the door and sent them outside to chase whatever it was away. I heard them barking as they ran towards the forest. Then I heard yelping from both of them as I opened the door to go outside and see if I could find them. As soon as I took one step onto the porch, both my shepherds came running back inside. Whatever it was out there literally scared the crap out of two 110-pound dogs. We were all kinds of weirded out by the encounter, and curiosity had got the best of me, and I walked outside with a flashlight. Now, the window we were looking at was about 8 feet off the ground outside. This thing, or whatever it was looking at us, was halfway up the window, which would have made it easily 9 to 10 feet tall. I went back inside, stunned at what I'd just learned. The next day, it was nice and sunny out, and I took the dogs outside to do their morning business. I had wandered back to underneath the window, where this thing was standing. I looked down and saw the impressions of two giant, human-looking type feet. Now, I'm a size 12 shoe, and these prints made my feet look small. They had to be around 18 to 19 inches in length and at least 8 to 9 inches wide. I followed the tracks right into the forest. In between footsteps, it had to have been at least 6 feet. After looking at this, I'm pretty sure we had a Sasquatch running around. It didn't seem dangerous, more curious, but I hope it doesn't come back in our yard again. All right, thank you so much to Mr. Swamp Dweller for another great story, this time courtesy of Canada's Great Unknown. And you can subscribe to that by going to Canada's Great Unknown on YouTube. If you're in our chat room, we put the link in there. And don't forget to subscribe to Swamp Dweller. Literally, he has thousands of stories just like that and more. Go to Swamp Dweller Reads on YouTube and hit subscribe. It is that time once again where we get into a little UFO talk with the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the unbiased UFO report. All right, the fedora-wearing John Hudson, whom I will meet this weekend in San Francisco, California, hopefully, if he can hitchhike his way up the highway to get there. We would appreciate that. Hey, he's freshly shaven, no longer looking like a member of the Bee Gees. John, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Great night with Susan Masino, and you know what? You never go wrong with that. Never go wrong with that.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff.
There's a lot going on, man, in the UFO world. A lot of drama, a lot of news. You know, where are we even going with this, man?
It's the truth is that it will need a fair amount of hindsight to really get any kind of grasp as to what's actually going on right now. Because, basically what we're talking about is, there's kind of several meltdowns, going on. And when I use the term meltdown, if the image that came to your mind is a young child like melting down in the middle of a playground, that's probably somewhat appropriate. And so the question becomes, one is, are people all behaving and acting on all the available data, which is one thing we'll talk about. And then also, how much of this is just, to give you an example, just to put it in context, you have two different YouTube channels that felt that they had each damaged the honor of each other, and they've essentially gone to battle. But the thing is that you could take the fact that they've gone to battle, you could take what they're going to battle over, and then you could also take what their methods of battle. And the problem is really it's the third. It's the method of battle. It's the fact that essentially we're seeing a tremendous amount of really, really, really childish behavior. But I do think that a fair amount of it is based on a misunderstanding. And I think that's very unfortunate, but I think that people are so wrapped up in what's going on that, and it's hard because I'm talking somewhat in abstracts because I want to be very careful, because I would have a hard time blaming any one person more than any other at this point. It's gotten pretty evenly destructive at this point. How else can I clarify what we're talking about, Dave?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways. Right now, due to a lot of the drama that's going on, UFO Twitter is actually trending again tonight on Twitter. There's no reason for it. And the battle continues because, let's face it, this has become, and I hate to use the term war, but it's become a war of words between supporters of Lou Elizondo and his message and those who just want some questions answered and those who absolutely despise Elizondo and what he stands for. And
but one thing I'll add really quick is that there is the question of is what you mentioned about Elizondo, is there anything specific to that related to Elizondo, or are we just looking at, once again, a human behavior where people that love something tremendously and then become disenchanted with it usually become the biggest enemy available to that item?
Well, I think the shiny new toy has some scuffs on it, right? In many people's eyes. Now, we talked the other night when you were on that you don't have a problem with him having any sort of sock puppet type type of profile out there that he could communicate without mentioning he's Lou Elizondo. I said I did not have a problem with it. Yet a lot of YouTube, a lot of online people are. This is a debate that continues.
However, and that's what I was going to say is that I've been engaged in a debate with a couple of different people and two individuals who I absolutely adore, and what really kind of teased out of it is that once again there's this nuance to it in that there's the mechanical aspect of someone having more than one identity, okay, and then there is the kind of the verb version of this, which is like, what are they then doing with it, right? Because, for example, if someone is just using the accounts to talk about subjects they can't normally talk about, even these things where people are like, well, yeah, but they're using it to support themselves. It's like, okay, but wait a second. If you have an account for your business and you have a personal account and you go like your own business, that's not a horrible, deceptive thing. So the problem is that you have all these different ways of looking at it in both directions where it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. Now, where it becomes very challenging is that there was a further dialogue at some point where it seems to be that essentially that Elizondo was either speaking fondly of or not speaking out against some of his more devoted followers taking very aggressive actions on his part. Now, that's very different than him asking them to do so or for him to be encouraging them to do so. This is them acting on their own volition, sort of thing. But even if you're not the one bowling with your sock accounts, if there are other people bowling with your sock accounts and you're encouraging them, that's obviously very, very ugly behavior. There is unfortunately now a third slant to it, which we can't go into a lot of detail of, but just that there may be an investigation going on, in which case there may have been things done specifically as a baited honeypot sort of like counterintelligence type situation, and we won't know the details of that or even the reality of that if it is for a long time.
You said something very interesting. What kind of investigation?
Well, just the rumor that there's some investigation into this.
Well, you got to go into detail. That's what the Unbiased UFO Report is all about, dude. If you're hearing some cool stuff like that, we need to know about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's basically the idea that and you know, I want to be just very careful what I say because I don't want to put anyone in a bad spot, but essentially, it appears there appears to be at least evidence worth exploring that there are groups of people who are very organized, who are really kind of taking organized action and really kind of acting as activists, very aggressive activists. And it's very questionable what their motives are, and some of their methods are very questionable. And so, they've become questionable enough as to possibly have attracted the attention of lawyers. So there's real potential for perhaps an investigation and some fallout.
Very interesting. We should also mention here a couple of noteworthy pieces. Congratulations to Linda Moulton Howe. She's 80 years old, and she just surpassed 200,000 subscribers on her YouTube channel, listening to a whole plethora of woo there on whenever she broadcasts. I'm not sure of her schedule. But Lou Elizondo was her guest earlier this evening as an anniversary or a party. They even popped champagne on her show. It was quite interesting. You could tell the Elizondo interview was recorded, and you could see her chat room going absolutely haywire with questions because, well, let's see. Linda was in a different outfit, when she was interviewing Lou compared to the one she was wearing for her celebration. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, sure.
And we also have some sad news breaking this evening. I don't know if you saw this or not, but he's a legendary guy in the UFO and supernatural world. Jordan Maxwell has passed away. And back in January, Jordan had a pair of strokes that very much incapacitated him. We had him scheduled for Lynn Wallington's show on the weekend, a few weeks ago, and we couldn't get a hold of him, and we had to change guests there. But found out the news tonight that his health deteriorated over the last few weeks very, very quickly, and he had passed away. I mean, there was a man who was in the know. Like, he was a poor man. He wasn't wealthy. Yet all of these wealthy people would come up to him, say, Jordan, tell me about the aliens, or Jordan, tell me about what's coming. Like, he would be invited to private one-on-one conversations with dignitaries and royalty all around the world, movie stars, musicians, even government officials having private talks with him because he was just so in tune. And he always had this very famous story right at the beginning when this all started for him. When he moved west to California, he walked into a diner and met the waitress, and they kind of started speaking, and she invited him over to her parents' house for dinner. So after dinner, he walks in there, meets mom and dad. Dad asks, what do you know about UFOs and aliens? And he's like, like, what's this all about? And father of this girl takes him outside, and all of a sudden 3 UFOs come and hover right over top of the property. And that's when he figured out that they were actually an alien family. And he saw her for a few more weeks, and then all of a sudden the family just vanished. Gone, disappeared. Yeah. Family of aliens. Now there's a man who knows what is going on now. Him and Butch Witkowski are hanging out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah.
That's... Wow.
It's a heavy story. It's a very heavy story, but one that you could go on YouTube and check out any Jordan Maxwell video, and he tells that. But, John, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. We are going to continue the Unbiased UFO Report with the fedora-wearing John Hudson. And, of course, coming up, we also have Shirky Poo's news. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right, we're clear. Where do you want to go next, John?
Well, it kind of depends on on what you want to do and where we think the audience will get the most out of it, because I think that there's a lot that can be said about the chosen methods of combat that are being employed, and we could have I think a very interesting discussion about alternatives to those methods that people might consider.
We can continue that.
And then certainly there was a lot of activity today over at the Black Vault that honestly you could do a whole show on each of those items, or cover them well in a short period of time. There's a lot to unpack, so we got lots of choices.
All right. Well, let's just run with it. You want to go back to the drama first?
Yeah, because there's certainly a few things that I think would probably be good to say.
Sure.
So, because, man, has it gotten way... Like, even Fonzie would be like, wow. Like, my episode was nothing. Hello. Waylon Jennings. Like that's one of those, that's one of those songs, there's that song and then the song to Cheers, a couple of them that I heard over and over again as a kid at the same time period for a long enough time that they just branded certain emotions into me. It's really crazy. But the theme song to the Dukes of Hazzard is definitely one of those things. Like that actually watching the opening scene, like the opening entry scene to Dukes of Hazzard on a TV.
Oh yeah.
If I'm not careful, will actually put me to sleep.
Really?
Because I instantly, not when I was younger. When I was younger, I was into it. But now I get so relaxed when it comes on. As soon as I hear the music and I start to see the scenes, like I relax so much that then I find myself like dozing off for a nap. It's freaking hilarious.
You know what I'm looking forward to? I am looking forward to tomorrow being a brutally busy day.
Oh, that's good.
I got to wake up in the morning. I got to take my vehicle into the shop. I got to get all my stuff together, do some running around town, get my taxes in to my accountant. And what else do I need to do? I got to do a show tomorrow. Then, as soon as we are done that show, throw my suitcase in the back of my vehicle, drive for 5.5 hours to the airport.
Well, wait a second. 5.5 hours to get to the airport?
Yeah, 5.5 hours.
I'm sorry, I can't believe that. So basically, I can't live I can't live more than 30 minutes away from an airport. Like career wise, I just can't. It would cost so much money and it would cost so much time. Because where I am now, I've literally woken up in my house at 8:30 and been in my seat on the airplane at 9:15. Beautiful.
You first classers.
No, that's just Southwest, man. That's no first class anything. Southwest.
EMF. I have 9 big trees in my property. Which one do you want? Hi, Mark Sanchez, Solus 1. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Thank you tonight to Crazy Smith and Smithy for the amazing super chats. Very much appreciate them. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Thank you to all our new subscribers lately. We are encroaching on 15,900. Up to 16,000 pretty quick here, bud. Up to 16,000 pretty quick. That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. All right, here we go, John.
I will admit, I will sometimes
here we go.
Class International, but no first.
We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate all of you tuning us on in. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the unbiased UFO report. John, we always appreciate you coming on here. But this, for people who are in Radioland who don't understand all of this drama that's going on in the UFO world, why are we needing to talk about it?
So basically what happened in a nutshell is some information came out about the fact that Luis Elizondo had alternate social media accounts, and the way in which he was using them and why he was using them was called into question. And in the ensuing debate, several people evolved into their 4-year-old states and began viciously attacking each other in very weird ways that no one's going to be happy is on film. It's crazy. It's
The world around us is smart. We think your education should be smart too. With the FlexPath learning format from Capella University, you can set your own deadlines and leverage your experience to move forward at your pace. Visit capella.edu to learn more. Capella University. Don't just learn smarter.
Coming March 16th to Disney Plus. More heroes, more villains, more Marvel, all in one place. Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Punisher, The Defenders, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Only on the streaming home of Marvel. All of these and more streaming this month on Disney Plus.
The thing that's really hard for me is that, and I really consider this a personal character flaw. I have a very hard time not letting it impact my opinion of them. I have a very hard time not letting it impact how much optimism I have in their character. And that's not really fair. I shouldn't do that. People can make mistakes, but it's hard because you're seeing people, for example, let's take Mick West, for example. Now, there's a ton of stuff that I completely disagree with Mick West on. But I will never shy away from talking about his good attributes. I will never shy away from talking about what he's good at. I will never shy away from giving him credit for what he's done. I will never shy away from talking about the fact that I've talked to him privately, and I think he's actually a really nice guy. I think he's a very clever individual, and I think he really honestly means well, right? Now, one could argue that Mick West is my arch enemy. Okay, whatever. The thing is that you can be in some of the best friendships I've ever had were the most adversarial, right? And there's so many ways to play this, and so you take something like and Mick, if you see this, I apologize for using the example, but it's the best example I can think of at the top of my head. When I am critiquing things about Mick West's work, I'm really careful when I do so. I don't attack him personally. I don't try to convince you that his argument's wrong, and then when I can't convince you that he's wrong, and therefore his argument's wrong, right? We're doing a lot of logical fallacies here, right? We're trying very, very hard to brand people as certain ways so that other people believe you on your judgment of them, right? And it's a mess. And honestly, at this point, I don't think anyone's I don't think anyone's guilt-free at this point. It's actually been pretty amazing, like some of the stuff that's come out. But it's all just it's all very childish. It's all very personal, and the thing is that even at times where I've gotten extremely frustrated with Mick West. Once again, Mick, I apologize. You're the best example I have. I have always engaged with them with the assumption that I'm going to need to continue to engage with him in the foreseeable future. So I want this relationship to continue. I don't want to do things that shut down communication. I don't want to do things that obviously assume that the other person isn't going to exist anymore in 2 years, which is how a lot of people behave, right? So if we all start really focusing on trying to treat everyone as if the fact that they're going to stick around and we're going to have to work with them, so we're going to have to find a method of doing so, and we start trying to really focus on the arguments, and if someone doesn't agree with our argument, there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with them. I agree to disagree.
That's what's turned into the battlefield, though. You're wrong, I'm right all the time. And if you don't agree with my opinion or who I like, I'm going to troll you, I'm going to bash you, I'm going to do whatever I can to bring you down. Now, I think we do have to be careful when we say that, though, because there are people out there right now, like Thomas Fessler's disclosure tonight, love him or hate him, what he is doing, which has caused a lot of havoc in the UFO world, is he is trying to protect the idea that Lou Elizondo sticks around because there is so much hatred for Lou Elizondo. Now, a lot of people... Well, let me finish.
Please.
A lot of people may not like the tactics, but on the flip side, what happened? My fear on it is this. What happens to the UFO world if we lose Elizondo, knowing that the AOI MSG wants to shut everything down? You can call Elizondo a disinfo agent. You can call him a spy. You can call him whatever you want. But the idea is that he has opened up, if you listen to his interviews, he has opened up with a lot of information that most people haven't found yet. That's what I've noticed. And that's why my attitude changed about him. I was very critical of him and the whole To the Stars Academy, which, I called it to be a bust, and it turned out to be a bust. But with Elizondo, I'm a fan of his. I'm a fan of the work that he is doing. I'm okay with the fact that he has an NDA that he can't say much. But you have, as much as I say that, you have to listen and read between the lines of what he is saying, because there are Easter eggs all over that. And
very true. Very, very true.
So, you may not like the way some people are going after Elizondo, or some people are going to protect him. I will say this. I would say that I fall into the category, if I had to choose a side, that I am a fan of Lou Elizondo's. He will be on this show in late April. And we might even be his final interview for a while. Don't know yet. But I will say this. It's okay, UFO Twitter, that people out there want to ask him some pertinent and potentially tough questions. That's healthy. That's okay. He's put himself in the public eye in order to ask those questions. Whether he chooses to answer those questions or can legally answer those questions is an entirely different story. But to sit there and say that he can't answer things, well, geez, if you had a lifetime in jail weighing above your head, would you? I wouldn't. You break your NDA on something like this top secret, you're going to jail.
Jail is the least of my concerns when it comes to breaking such things. Least of my concerns.
Yeah, and yes, you would know. You had to sign NDAs for some of the major companies that you worked for.
Crazy stuff, thousands of them. Yeah.
Okay, but the idea is this: there are the people who are going to say he's a shyster for putting out. He's counterintelligence. Of course, he probably has 2, 3, 4, 5 profiles out there, looking at what's going on, what people are saying. He's looking for what news we have as well.
Every celebrity has, everyone who's ever had a social media job, everyone who's ever had a social media presence for work, everyone who's ever been a celebrity of any sort, everyone who's ever been in politics of any sort, you have to maintain accounts for your professional identity and your private identity. If nothing else, that at minimum.
Yeah.
But the thing I will say, though, is that, these two individuals that I was talking, we had a great debate about these alternate accounts ideas, and in the end, I don't think we came to a consensus. I think we were still pretty far apart when it came to what you did with the accounts, right? But we were able to have this conversation that went around for some time, and we never insulted each other. We never called each other names. We never said, can you believe this guy? I mean, the rhetoric being used. And the thing is that Dave, I will differ with you in one point, in that, well, I agree with you that I think that what Thomas is doing to stand up for what he believes is true with Lou is a very good thing. His methodologies over the last day or two, I would be I would have a very hard time standing behind some of that. And the problem is that I know it comes from passion. I know it comes from love. I know it comes from pain. I know it comes from all these places that are very normal and natural. But it doesn't change the fact that every packet of information you send out to engage with someone, after you've evaluated whether it makes the point you want to make, the second thing you have to ask is does this make the situation more tense or less tense? It's a whole different category of measurement, right? You should never be ratcheting up anything. It's insane. It never gets you anywhere.
Well,
it just
you know what, though? Look, I come from it in a different way. And I'll put this in hockey terms, and I know you don't understand hockey terms, but I'll put this in hockey terms. All right? It's called take a number. And what happens is, say number 25 skates up to your best player and slashes them right behind the legs, hurting your top player's legs. Legs are kind of important in hockey. You know what I'm saying? Okay, because you need them to skate. And for shooting power. So, as somebody who would be considered an enforcer, your job is to skate up to number 25, who just slashed your player, and you have some words for him, or you give him a shot back. Eye for an eye. That's the way it kind of goes. There's also the rule of thumb, where for every action, there's a reaction, whether it's positive or negative. And sometimes...
Hey, you know where eye for an eye came from? The Code of Hammurabi. I mean, we haven't followed that stuff for a long, long, long time. The real world doesn't work that way. It's not might makes right. It's not an eye for an eye. That revenge is not actually something that's codified into the legal system, right? It's actually about rehabilitating, helping people. Hopefully, I mean, obviously it doesn't happen, but the idea is that you're hopefully trying to help people get better. It's not about revenge.
Well, I understand that, but Thomas Fessler decided upon taking upon himself and his team to protect Lou Elizondo, to stand up.
Because,
hey, that's what they decided to do. They're allowed
to.
Well,
no. I know, I get that. I was just going to make the comment. I always get a kick out of when people defend people on their behalf, because usually the people who they're defending don't actually want to be defended because they can take care of themselves. But the thing is that it's not. That's why I say I admire Thomas's passion. I admire his position. I have no problem with the way he's assessed the situation. Is he right? I don't know. It could be. It's not in alignment with exactly what I believe, but it's not far off. But it's the way he went about it. It was the tone he used. It was the language he used. It was the intent of the delivery of what he used. There was a I don't know if you want to call it a vengefulness to it, or a meanness to it, or a lashing out to it. I don't know whether it is a fair. I don't want to mischaracterize it. I'd like to give it a fair adjective, but to me, it felt emotional.
Well, I would say this: when there are people out to defend Thomas, when there are people out there attacking your sexuality, attacking your position on things, attacking your dead mother, attacking your ex-wife, attacking your husband, and putting YouTube channels on it, when you are getting death threats sent to your email account, there's a lot going on there, man, that we don't even know about. All right? I know this because I talked to Thomas. Right? And
sure there is, but I mean, but I mean, we're not just good people because life is easy, right? I mean, like the whole point is being good when it's hard, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and the good point is humans get pushed to a point where enough is enough, and you have to fight fire with fire, dude. I know you're a Buddhist, okay, and a pacifist and all that, and I love that about you. I do.
You would not believe how many guns and weapons I own, Dave. I am not a pacifist.
Well, you probably like a nice cut of brie cheese as well. So do I.
No, no. Actually, I'm into violence. I'm not a pacifist.
Well,
I have swords. I have guns. I've been trained in katanas. I love weapons.
Well, let me say it this way. At some point, there was, in this whole UFO Twitter world, it's gone beyond pushing for the happiness and satisfaction of Lou Elizondo. All right? It has gone well beyond that point. Our radio audience is going to be like, come on, get on with this. What does this have to do with UFOs stealing our power off our energy grids?
Well, I tell you one thing, though. It can have a massive impact on any future delivery of any information on this topic.
It has.
Because the thing is that, what you now have is you have two YouTube channels that both produce content that I have repeatedly taken advantage of and enjoyed in the past, that are now going after each other in such vicious ways that they're both behaving as if they see no path back. That's how they're both behaving. They're both behaving as if they see no path back. So what? They're just going to pretend each other doesn't exist while they continue to exist in the community? I mean, come on. It's not that many people. I mean, at some point, we have to adult, right? Like, adulting we will go, right? It's like, we got to do it.
The day UFO Twitter actually adults will be the day that I cannot use certain phrases, like calling Joe Mergia's hair, like Velcro.
I will forward you the conversation I had yesterday.
With Joe Mergia?
No. With John and was it Carl? I don't know who it was. Two lovely guys.
I don't know who they are.
You actually do, but I'm forgetting their proper handles at the moment.
Well, I could say this. Joe Mergia, if you're listening, your hair is like Velcro. And I'm afraid that if I get close to you, I may stick to you. Very talented writer and researcher, Joe Mergia. But he's got brutal hair. Brutal hair. Yeah. We got 2.5 minutes. No point in starting the news now. What else you got for us?
Well, no, but all I was going to say was that I really don't think this is anything about the content, right? I think questions a lot of these questions are excellent questions. A lot of the concerns are very, very good. A lot of the paranoia, even in some levels, is very, very just. It's just it's the personal nature of it. It's the immature nature of it. It's the vengeful nature of it. It's the idea that somehow when you've been hurting someone else is going to make you hurt less, which is just so insane. But I mean, that seems to be what people seem to think, which is just weird. But that's a problem.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I don't know if I agree with you, John. I don't know. I think we're looking at this at way two different sides. Way too different. Absolutely possible. But the only thing I would say is that, I don't have any really good examples of your method ending well. Yeah, but it's not about a method. It's about standing up for what you feel is right. I mean, you're Mr. Weapon.
Absolutely.
If you're Mr. Weapons guy, if you catch some stranger walking on your property that's getting a little loud and boisterous, are you going to protect yourself? Or are you going to say, "Hey, Buddha tells me not to do this"? Come on, gun guy.
Depends on a lot of factors than what you just gave.
Not really.
It's not that clean of it. Oh no, it is. It absolutely is. It depends on where they are in the yard, how they're walking, whether they're carrying a weapon, what the weather. I mean, there are so many factors.
Holy cow! Talk about blowing something out of proportion. It was a simple example.
Well, sorry, that's how I think of it. That's just how I think of it.
This is why I love you.
But the thing is it I think that I think that there are places in the world, there are times in the world where people could get into fistfights and then walk away.
And on that note, we're going to leave it right there, because that's where we got to end the show. Thank you to the fedora-wearing John Hudson and the Unbiased UFO Report. Thank you to Swamp Dweller for another spooky story from the swamp. Head over to his channel on YouTube, Swamp Dweller Reads, and hit subscribe there. The guy is well worth it. And we also want to say a giant, massive rock and roll horns up thank you to our guest tonight, Susan Masino, who is just one of the most amazing people I've ever got a chance to interview. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of...
There's only one place to find the most recognized brand in carpet, Stainmaster, and that's at Lowe's. Right now, get free basic installation with the purchase of Stainmaster carpet and pad, $4.99 or more. Lowe's, home to any budget, home to any possibility. Install available in-store only. Requires non-refundable site assessment fee. Fee is credited to final project price if bought through Lowe's. More charges may apply. Not available in all areas. See Lowe's.com for details, exclusions, and licensure. Valid 2/19 through 4/13. U.S. only.